Hello everyone, I am making a whole bunch of Churn Dash blocks because I joined a block swap and this is a very simple block to do. So I'm going to show you what you need to make one block and then I'm going to show you how I batch sew them so that I get more done. You're going to need for your corners, you're going to need 2 pieces of print fabric, 5-inch square, and then 2 background fabric, also 5-inch square. And then for your centerpiece, you're going to need a 4.5-inch square. You can do it the same as the background or you can do something different. And then for your side pieces or center pieces, I'll show you where they go. You need 2.5-inch strips and they need to be at least 18.5 inches long. Mine are a bit longer because I just cut fat quarters and then half of width of fabric. So these pieces are going to be for your corners here and then your center. And then these strips are going to make up like these little middle points here. So let me walk you through how I do this and how I get it all ready and then how I batch sew. So these two, we're just going to lay them right sides together and sew a 1/4 inch all the way down, and then we're going to subcut them into pieces. They don't have to match up on both ends. It's fine as long as it's longer than 18.5 inches. You will have enough to cut what you need. This one we don't need to do anything with right now. That can be just put to the side for later. And with these, we need to make 4 half square triangles. So I'm just going to use the 2 at a time method. So I'm going to be drawing a line diagonally down both of the background pieces on the wrong side of the fabric. And that's going to be our sewing guide for when we sew down there, and then we can cut them apart and get 2 half square triangles. So once you have the lines drawn, you just want to lay your fabrics right sides together and make sure that everything's lined up nicely. You wouldn't have to pin in place. I am, because I am going to be batch sewing and I'm going to be stacking them, and I don't want to have to worry about them shifting and moving around while I'm moving them from here to the sewing machine. You know what I mean? This block is very easy to make, but it still looks really nice. So that's why I chose this one. And just by changing colors, you can change the look of it. So I have these ready to go to the sewing machine, but because I'm batch sewing, I'm going to be taking all of my background fabrics for my corners and drawing my line and then pinning everything in place and then taking it over to the sewing machine so that I can sew it all at once. I can chain stitch. It just goes a lot faster and I get more blocks done that way. I at least find so. And then for these strips, I'm not going to pin them in place. I'm just going to lay them by my sewing machine and then take one of each and sew them right sides together and then just line it up as I go. So now we have these here. We need to go to the sewing machine. We need to sew a 1/4 inch on both sides, but I'm just going to do one side at a time and just chain stitch and run them all through. And then once I have them all through on one side, I'm just going to grab the other end, turn it around, and then sew down the other side of that line. I love batch sewing. I feel like I get a lot more done that way. And since I need to make 29 blocks for this block swap that's happening over on Rita's Roost, I will leave her channel link in the description box below. Yeah, well, there's 29 of us. That's counting myself, but I do want to make a block for my own quilt as well. Just that way it's in there and a little bit more even. I don't know. We'll see what I do. I'll probably make myself a scrappy block using all of these scraps. All right, so now that I have those all done, I'm going to move on to these. I'm going to be chain stitching as well. So I'm just going to take 2 pieces, lay them right sides together, and then just line them up as I go. Be careful not to tug or pull on anything. You don't want to stretch any of your fabric. Just go nice and slow and sew all the way down. And then I'm going to grab the next 2 pieces and then just run them through as well. And if I batch sew like this, I'm not getting up to press each piece and going back to the sewing machine to do the next one. I just get more done. So once I have them sewn together, I'm going to be heat setting those seams first, and then I'm going to be pressing to the dark side. So I just have it laying with the dark side up, and then I just fold it over like this, and I give it a good finger press before I hit it with the iron. I just want to make sure that I don't have any lumps or dips in there, because then your blocks aren't going to end up the right size. Trust me, I learned that one the hard way. Couldn't figure out why my blocks weren't the right size. It turns out my pressing was crap. But I figured that out. So once we've done that, I'm just going to take 2 of these squares and I'm going to cut right down the center on the diagonal between those 2 seams that we sewed. I'm going to do it for both of them, and then this was going to give us 4 half square triangles, and that is what we need for the block that we are working on. All right, now we need to trim these down to 4.5-inch square. I'm going to be using my little slotted trimming ruler that I have. I got it off of Amazon. I will leave a link to that in the description box below. So I'm just going to find my 4.5-inch line, and then there's a little dotted line on there. You can't really see it on camera. But that dotted line, I'm going to line it up with my seam, and then that's going to give me a perfect 4.5-inch square half square triangle. Okay. And then I like this one because it has the little slots on there, so I can just trim off my dog ears right away and then I don't have to do it later. And I don't know, I love this ruler, and it's great when you're doing a whole bunch. It just makes it a lot easier and a lot faster. So I have that one done. So I'm just going to trim them all up and then take them over to the iron, and then I will press them there, and I will be pressing to the dark side as well. So once I have that done, I'm going to trim these down. We also need these at 4.5-inch square. That first one I'm going to cut a little bit bigger than 4.5-inch because I need to straighten up that other side there. And this is just how I do it. You could do it before you cut your square, but I prefer to do it this way. But it's entirely up to you how you want to do it, as long as they end up being 4.5-inch square. And you will be needing 4 of these, so then just cut whatever you need. I did end up with a little bit extra on the end, but that's fine. That's just going to go in my scrap bin. And who knows, maybe I'll use that for the block that I make for myself. That way I have a little piece of all the fabrics that I chose. I'm going to show you how I put this together before I finish cutting everything else and going to the sewing machine. So when you put it together, you want to have your print fabric facing your center. So then just lay them out like this. And like I said, if you use different colors of fabrics or different prints, you're going to get a totally different look. I at least find, and I really like that. Because some of these I use the exact same and some I use different. I use what I had. I didn't want to buy too much fabric for this. But this is what it's going to end up looking like. So I'm just going to cut everything else down and then I'm going to lay them all out on my design boards and take them over to the sewing machine and chain stitch them all at once. So once I have them all cut, I'm just, like I said, design board, and then I just divide everything equally. And I'm doing 4 blocks on each design board because once I get to this point, then I like to do a little bit less. 4 is usually the max I will sew together at once just to avoid confusion and I don't end up making a mistake because, well, at this point I'm almost done. I don't want to screw up now. I want to get it right. But once I have them all laid out, I'm just going to stack my 2 design boards together and head over to the sewing machine. All right, now I'm going to start chain stitching these together. So I'm going to take the top left corner block and then that center top block. And I'm going to lay those right sides together. And I'm always double checking to make sure that I have them the right way and that I'm sewing on the right side. Because you don't want to finish the block only to find out that you turned one piece the wrong way and now it just totally changed the look. Once I have that one run through, then I'm just going to grab from my next block. So this is actually block number 2. So again, just lining everything up and making sure that I have it the right orientation and then sending it through the sewing machine. And then I'm just going to continue doing this until I have all of the first 2 pieces sewn together for all 4 blocks. I don't know, this system might not work for everybody, but this works for me. And I hope you bear with me in my madness in my sewing here. This is just a system that I've figured out for myself. Everyone kind of has to get their own. But once I have those done, then I'm just going to go back and then, or take the pieces and cut the first one off. And then I'm going to grab the next piece that should be on there according to my layout. Again, double checking, making sure that I have it the right way and didn't get anything turned around before I do it. And like I said, I check every single time because I've sewn too many wrong in the past when I was first starting out. And you just kind of have to learn a system that works for you. And then when I have that first row piece, I'm going to cut all of them off of there except for that last one because I like my chain stitching. And I'm just going to throw them on my pressing board, which is right behind me. And then I'm just going to grab from my next row and repeat the same process with the last 2 rows. And then I'm going to go over to the ironing station. I'm going to press everything and then come back and sew them together. And then I'll show you how I press them because I do like to press them so that I can nest my seams. So when I have these all laid out, I'm going to figure out which way the seams would prefer to fall because seams sometimes would rather go one way than the other. So I'm just going to figure that out and then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that I'm pressing them the way that they want to go. That way you can end up getting your block to lay flatter. So my top and bottom rows, I'm going to be pressing my seams to the center. And then my center row, I'll be pressing the seams to the outside, if that makes sense. I'll show you what it looks like. And then this way, when I go to pin them all together, I can nest those seams and I'm just going to get nicer looking points in the end. My points are still not always 100%, but here you can see I just pressed them to the center. You could press them open if you wanted to. That's entirely up to you. I did make a video on testing which was better, and in my opinion, it doesn't matter. It's whichever one you prefer. I'll leave a link to that video in a card up above if you want to check that one out. I find pressing to the side goes faster, but sometimes I do press open. It all depends on what I'm making and how small my blocks are, because if they're really tiny, then pressing open is better in the long run, I think. Well, they're just easier to put together. But here you can see that I press these seams to the outside, and then this one I'm going to be pressing to the center again, and in that way they're going to nest nicely, and I'll show you how I do that here. And I'm just going to take the top piece, lay it right sides together, and I'm going to start on the left side, and this is just a method that works for me. You do whatever more comfortable for you. Not everything works the same for everyone, so you just kind of got to figure out your own thing. So here I'm just going to be making sure that my seams are nested nicely, and then I'm going to take a pin and pop it into that seam, making sure that it's going the way that I want it to and laying flat. I'm going to move in a little bit closer. Maybe you can see a better view here. And then I'm just going to take the next seam and again, making sure that I'm nesting everything. And then I'll place a pin in there. I normally don't pin if I don't have to, but because I want these blocks to look nice, I will be taking the extra step because I'm sending them to other quilters and they might judge me. No, I'm not actually worried about that. They're a great group of ladies. But there you can see it's all lined up nicely, and I'm just going to keep doing that with all of them. And if you want to, you can just sew that 2 rows together, but I'm pinning everything so I don't have to keep getting up because I'm lazy. And then I'm just going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to start sewing. And here I'm going to show you. I'm going to stop with my needle down right when I get to that seam, right before I hit that pin. And that's the only time I'm going to remove that pin. That way I'm going to make sure that that nesting seam isn't going to shift. And when I take it or open it up later on, it's going to match up nicely. And here I'm just making sure that all my seams are aligned the right way, but I still managed to flip some because, that's just the way it goes sometimes. All right, time to do the final pressing. And here I'm just going to, again, heat set my seams. And again, just figure out which way the seams want to go at this point. And you could maybe press them open, but I didn't. I press mine to the center here, and before I do that and I hit it with the iron, I'm just going to take my finger and run it along and make sure that I don't have any lips there, because I've had that in the past and I really don't like that. And it just like lays flatter if you take the time for the finger press first. I at least find it's a little tip that I learned from Just Get It Done Quilts. Yeah, I watched one of her videos about proper pressing methods. All right, once they're ironed and I give them a good press to make sure that they're flat, I'm going to get my 12.5-inch ruler, because that is the size of the blocks that we are making. And then I'm just going to square it up. And I am using my 12.5-inch rotating cutting mat that I got from Fat Quarter Shop. It just makes it a lot easier, and I'm not trying to, like, reach around awkwardly or having to move around the table. I can just spin my little mat, and then I have it lined up so cutting is a lot more comfortable and I get a more accurate cut this way. I'll leave a link to this in the description box below too. They have them in many sizes. I just love this mat and I'm so glad I invested the money in it. You can get some on Amazon too, but I preferred this one, so that's what I got. And then I have some blocks done here now. I believe I have 16 done in total now, so I still have a ways to go. But here you can see, like, just by using some of the fabrics colors a little bit different, it changes the look of it, and I really like it. I still have a few more blocks to make, but that's okay. I do have time. The deadline is until September 1st. But I've been storing my completed blocks in this bin that I got. I got two of them off of Amazon. They do come in multiple colors. Unfortunately, the color I wanted was sold out, so I just got the clear one. But yeah, these fit 12.5-inch blocks perfectly. I absolutely love them. So glad I got them. I will leave a link to that along with all the other tools that I use in the description box below. I don't have time to finish sewing these right now, so I'm just going to leave them on my design board, throw them in the box, and close it. I did get 2 boxes, and they are stackable, and that is another reason why I love them. I will definitely be getting more. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video.